Hello, this is Jan van der A, and today we are in beautiful Lima, that's the capital of Peru, in the Miraflores district. Today I'm going to talk about the differences between being a good student and being a good learner. 2 years ago I gave a presentation at the Polyglot Gathering in Berlin where I indicated the difference between the two, because I used to be a good student but I was not a good learner. So in this video I'm going to tell you what the differences are. Keep watching. Let me first tell you a little bit about myself. I used not to be very good at languages at school. I started learning English when I was around 14, I guess. When I was 19, I graduated and I was one of the worst students of my class in English. And the same was for the other languages. I did some French at school and German as well. I was very bad at those languages, but I was interested in traveling and in the world. So let me tell you why I was a bad student at school and why I think that I became a good learner now. When I was at school, I studied a lot because I had to study, otherwise I wouldn't pass my exams. But that was exactly the reason why I was studying. I was only studying in order to pass the exams. Now, I do something different. I still have to learn, of course, and I still do study, but I use what I've learned all the time. If I learn a new word in, let's say, Cantonese, I try to use that word straight away once I go to Hong Kong or with my tutor online. So I think learning and studying are two different things. Studying is only just for an exam, and learning, that's something you do over and over again, and you use that for your whole life, basically. The same for speaking practice. When I was a student at school, I never spoke the language. I studied English and French and German for 4 years. I never spoke a word of German and, well, of those languages. And that was the reason why when I was 19, when I went to Costa Rica, I couldn't speak a word of English. Of course, I understood a lot, but I was very inconfident by speaking because I've never done it before. And now I speak, I think my speaking ratio is about 50-50. So that's a big difference. If you want to learn a language, you have to speak. At least if you want to learn how to speak the language, of course. I used to learn from books because I was at school. I only learned from books, and now I learn from everything. I learn from articles. I learn still from books, of course. I learn from language courses. I learn from native speakers. I learn from the television. We are in Peru now. I see a lot of Spanish around me. I pay attention to what's being said. And that makes a big difference as well. If it's just from a book, it's too boring for me. I cannot remember the information. You really need as many associations from the language as possible. So not only books, use everything, your whole environment. And that's what good learners do. That's what I do now. Here another difference is that here I mentioned that students used to spend most of the time together, and good learners, they used to hang out with locals. And this is what I did when I was in China. When I was in China, most of my classmates were spending time together, speaking Dutch all the time. And I was really interested. I went out there. As I mentioned in a few videos ago, I had a Chinese girlfriend there. I used Chinese all the time. And after 6 months, I was able to communicate pretty well in Chinese. So good learners hang out with native speakers, and good students most of the time. Of course, I'm generalizing here, but you can be a good student without having any interactions with the locals and actually speaking the language, as long as you pass your exam, of course. Good students worry about exams. Good learners don't worry so much about that because they know that that's not the reason why you learn a language. You don't learn a language in order to pass an exam. You want to be able to travel, to speak the language, you use it for business, in your relationships. I never worried about my exams. When I learned Chinese in China, I didn't study really hard for my exams because I know that there were words and characters I would never use. I just did not learn them. I knew if you learn a language, you do it for yourself and not for your teacher or for your parents or for whatever. So in school, of course, you learn. If you get the opportunity to speak, you often practice with your classmates and in an artificial environment, I would call it. A good language learner speaks with native speakers or with people who have learned the language already until a very high level. I think that's a big difference. Speaking with native speakers gives you motivation as well. I think it's really cool. For example, when I went to Ukraine a few months ago, I was able to speak Russian with the people there. I think that's cool. Speaking with a language teacher in Russian, that's still cool, but it's better with a native speaker. Gives you way more motivation, also gives you a feeling for the culture and for the language. which is important as well in the language learning process, of course. Students, they say they make commitments. They make learning a commitment. Actually, I do also make learning a commitment to myself, but I do it out of, I find it something fun. I find speaking foreign language, practicing a language with I find it fun, so I schedule lessons online from time to time. When I'm in a train or in an airplane, we're flying back to Europe in a few hours, I have my Anki decks here, and I'm going to do my Anki because I like languages. It's something, it doesn't take me too much effort. It's not a real commitment. It's something that I do anyways. It's something that I like because I know I can do it. And when I started learning language, I didn't know that I can do it. You simply have to successfully learn one language first. Once you've done that, then... I also mentioned that good students learn words and grammar, and that good language learners learn how to communicate effectively. Of course, in order to communicate, you need to learn words and some grammar as well. But I would focus on vocabulary in the beginning. That's what I do all the time. I would worry a little bit less about grammar, but I would learn grammar on the way, which means that you learn words, you learn the sentence structure in the beginning, and then once you are able to make sentences, you start paying attention to the grammar. And if you hear like that certain grammar is used over and over again by native speakers, that would be the right moment to look it up, or to look it up on the internet or in a grammar book. Yeah, a language student, when I was in school, I always stayed in my comfort zone. I learned either in the language class or at home, but in my comfort zone. And now I'm here in Peru. I speak Spanish whenever I have the opportunity, and I don't care so much anymore about making mistakes, and I push myself out of the comfort zone. And this is actually what you have to do with language learning all the time. And yes, I do make many mistakes. Yes, sometimes people look at me, don't understand me, there's miscommunication. I don't care so much about that, because now I know that people, you know, they are fine. If you're mistakes, if you try to speak that language, it's perfectly fine. That's the general rule. Of course, there are some exceptions, but go out your comfort zone. If you don't, I think Jim Rohn once had a quote, like he said, if you don't do the things you have never done before, you will stay like you are. So if you want to change yourself, if you want to become better in the language, you have to do things you've never done before. I think that's a very important one. The last one is that students stop. Oh yeah, this is of course also an important one. Students stop after they have passed their exams. Well, in all the languages I speak, I don't have any certificates at all. I don't think exams are very important. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, learning a language is important for yourself. You don't do it for your exam. You don't do it for your parents or to impress other people or whatever. So a good learner never stops learning. Some languages I speak at a higher level. There's still so many things to learn, even in your own native language. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Greetings from Lima. See you next time in Europe, I guess.